Please rise for silent invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilmember Foley.
Here.
Councilmember Tremont.
Here.
Councilmember Stillman.
Here.
Vice Mayor Bassett.
Here.
Mayor Burnett.
Here. We are all present. We have established a quorum. Discussion action, second reading of ordinance number 2021-5. Ordinance number 2021-5 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending Chapter 46 of the Code of Ordinances to create Article 5, providing for findings and intent, providing for definitions, providing for prohibited conduct, proximity and location restrictions for panhandling, solicitation, or begging, providing for penalties, repealing Section 18-122, prohibiting begging, repealing Division 3 of Chapter 18, Article 6, regulating charitable and religious solicitations, providing for codification, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severabilities, and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2021-5.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second. The item's open on the floor for discussion. Just want to, first of all, before we get into this, council, I want to thank everybody in the hard work that's involved in this. This has been a lot of time and hours in targeting a very specific problem. You know, that the issues and the ills that we're talking about are very broad, and we're targeting a very specific problem here. This is not an anti-homelessness ordinance. We are talking about very specific behaviors to protect the rights of our citizens and the people who visit our community as well, and their health, safety, and welfare. This is what we're targeting. This does not mean that we will not be working hard to to prevent homelessness and to help bring people from homelessness to into homes. Those are other issues. Like I said, this is a very finely targeted ordinance specific to the ordinance, to these behaviors, and I appreciate everybody's hard work on that. Before we get into the discussion, Attorney Jones, do we have anything that we want to add before that council gets into this?
Yes, so each of you we just received a letter today from the ACLU calling out some concerns. It was a rather lengthy letter, so we're not going to read that into the record, but I know each of you have a copy of that letter, have had a chance to read through that letter. We've had an opportunity to individually discuss that, and I've also had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Khan. So I'd like to just take a quick opportunity, if we could, to kind of address that on the record, almost a response to that letter.
Mr. Khan, if you do that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, when I go back a step, there was a news article was written by a really nice reporter that I talked to on the phone.
Do me a favor, pull that microphone
Sorry,
closer
I'm
to you
doing
so
it
everybody
again.
can hear you.
I'm doing it again. Sorry. First of all, I want to back up and say what a pleasure, what a privilege it is, and an honor to represent Port Orange. I've enjoyed getting to know each and every one of you in this endeavor, and I thank you for the honor and privilege of letting me serve this town. Before I go into the ACLU letter, which I will, there was a news article, Port Orange Panhandling Ordinance Imminent, dated January 28th, 2021. Very nice reporter, and I'm going to correct a few things in it that actually lead into some of the things in the ACLU, and I think it's important for me to do that, to just emphasize what we're deliberating and what we're voting on, we meaning you, and what you're not. Okay, so for example, she's giving me permission to do this, the reporter, and said she was hoping her editor would correct him. The article begins, the Port Orange City Council has given initial approval to a law to stop panhandling in the city, quote unquote. No, this law does not stop panhandling in this city. It protects panhandling. As a matter of fact, 96.25% of the city of Port Orange is available, if this ordinance passes, to panhandlers to ply their trade. Then it comes down there, about 4 paragraphs, and says, quote, Mr. Khan stressed the ordinance is designed to address aggressive panhandlers and not infringe on the rights of people to free speech, end quote. That's true, but, okay, this ordinance addresses aggressive panhandlers, certainly, and regulates other panhandlers, meaning that it prohibits town-wide, citywide, aggressive panhandling as defined in the ordinance, and provides that 96.25% of the city is available for panhandlers, and regulates some of the places that they can panhandle away from captive audiences, for example, with distance parameters. Third, it quotes a councilman, and it says, that the individual, quote, noted the new law addressed aggressive panhandling, not panhandling in particular. And again, no, the new ordinance addresses, it prohibits panhandling, aggressive panhandling, but does address by regulation of time, place, and manner panhandling, leaving 96.25% of the city available to panhandlers. Another sentence says, quote, the ordinance would target a specific commercial area in the city. No, it's pervasive throughout the city. All the distance parameters are pervasive throughout the city, no matter if you have an ATM in a residential area or a signalized intersection, it applies. But the sentence continues, quote, the ordinance would target a specific commercial area in the city, leaving 96.25% of the city available to panhandlers, but it would strictly be residential, end quote. No, okay? Of the 96.25%, I don't know the exact percentage, but there is a percentage of it that's in business and not just in residential areas. Those are important corrections to otherwise a really well-written article. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to start there. The ACLU article. Let me get that out. I just had a chance to quickly read this article, so I can't give pervasive comments on it, but I can say several things. First, there's a lot of talk about homelessness in this article, okay? And as the mayor said, this article, this ordinance, this proposed ordinance has nothing to do with homelessness. It doesn't. If there's an intersection, it's homeless a person who panhandles who is homeless, yes, okay? But as we all just obviously know, not all panhandlers are homeless, not all people who are homeless are panhandlers, but you will not see the word homelessness in this ordinance. It doesn't regulate in any shape, manner, form homelessness, okay? That's first. Second, in my very first appearance before you all, Councilman Tremont and I had a discussion about Reed v. Gilbert, okay? And so the ACLU talks, in its letter, talks about Reed v. Gilbert. And it quotes some cases that we talked about. On this record, we have not ignored Reed v. Gilbert. And the ordinances, and it quotes, for example, on page 2 of 4, an ordinance that's Toombs versus State of Florida, and that's just one of the ordinances that it quotes. That ordinance is a 2-page ordinance that does not address Reed. It does not address at all the idea of strict scrutiny and a compelling government interest, and ours does. I can say that I believe this, but I can't prove it yet. Okay, I think ours is leading edge. We directly address Reed, and I don't know what the record will reflect, because I always like to look to the record, and Jane is a great court reporter. And in talking about Reed, I think it came up and that is that we do not sidestep the burden of strict scrutiny and compelling government interest. I believe that I know that Toombs did, sidestepped it, and I believe that every case that fell, but I can't prove it yet, but I believe it, did not put forward a compelling state interest. I know that that's true with Tampa, which, and I have spoken to people who were involved in that case, and I've seen the record in that case. And I think that's the problem with it. We directly address the Reed burden. You heard Dr. Miles' testimony. First of all, you heard the 2-bit word is a plethora of testimony about habits attributable to panhandling, such as open defecation and open urination. And you heard Dr. Miles testify, and his former testimony, as well as Dr. Hinman's, who testified earlier for another city, were entered into this record. You heard Dr. Miles testify, not even because of COVID, but the danger to your citizens and tourists that could lead to a number of different diseases that were present in an exhibit that was placed before you as medical studies that could endanger their lives. And he also testified independently of that fact about the compelling state interest of spread and super spread of COVID based upon those same habits that are and have been attributable throughout this record to testimony. And that's really all I have to say about this. Or I could dice it up even more. I will say that it's a burden, just as I was talking to Councilman Tremont in the very first night. Reed is a burden you have to meet. Mm-hmm. And I believe, have put forward a compelling state interest that meets it head on because of COVID, but in addition to COVID. And Dr. Miles, I think, sums it up by summing up all of the testimony that you've heard regarding citizens and tourists and what they have endured with regard to habits that are attributable to panhandling. It's a leading edge ordinance. And as I said before, and I said it to Councilman Tremont, whom I can say this on the record, whom I'm honored to know, I said, can I guarantee success? No. And no one can ever make me say that it's going to be successful. But do I believe that we have put forward a compelling state government interest? Yes. Do I believe we've satisfied it with all of the testimony? Yes. Do I believe it's the least restrictive way to basically help mitigate those problems? Yes. That's my answer. And that's just with a brief study of the letter. I believe that when I go into the ordinances, as I have of the ordinances of, I think there's about 8 cases that are quoted. I've gone through, I think, 5 of them. None of them set forth a compelling state interest. They don't address it. They don't address it. I know the Toombs case doesn't, and I know the Tampa case doesn't. They just don't. There is one, and we're in it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Appreciate the added information. I was kind of disappointed to see that come at us at such a late hour, considering it has been weeks and months since we've been talking about it. But all the same, I had talked to Matt Jones earlier, and I thought it was important that before this council does deliberate for the second time at ordinance reading, that we have all the information on the table.
And I'll be glad to answer any question that any councilman has about anything.
With that, let's open it up for discussion. Let's start at this end. Jonathan?
No further questions.
Okay.
You know, I've already said how I feel about this, and you know, I just don't have anything at this point to really add. Everything I wanted to say, I think I said during the first reading. So
That's what usually happens.
yeah, I'll just say that I appreciate again. I know that this is a big undertaking, and I appreciate everyone's hard work on it.
And I, for one, have appreciated very much getting to know you, Councilman. It's been a
Likewise,
pleasure.
sir.
Chase?
Mr. Khan, I appreciate all your time and effort and energy. It's been a true pleasure working with you.
An honor back to you, sir.
Yeah, we've had some very fun discussions, and I've enjoyed every interaction that we've had, and I appreciate not only the hard work that you put in, but accepting the challenge. You know, I told you day one I had an open mind, and you did a tremendous job with this.
And I've been bragging on you a couple of places in the state. I'll just say it like that.
Well, like I said, I'm happy to be of assistance for any skeptical minds later on. I wasn't going to have any comments until I received this letter today, so bear with me and I'll keep it short. You all heard from me in the last meeting, so I will keep this short and sweet. But I take strong offense to the ignorant allegations made by the ACLU earlier today that this ordinance is somehow related to the homeless issue. Had they seen or attended any of our prior meetings, they would know that that's simply not the case. Had they tuned in for our public hearing, they would have also heard the hours and hours of testimony supporting the city's need to adopt this regulation. The city is not addressing homelessness anywhere in the ordinance. The city is not prohibiting panhandling. We simply demand that the panhandling be done in a manner that does not place our citizens or the panhandlers in danger. I don't know of any interest that could be more compelling than public safety. And for these reasons, and the reasons I shared at our first reading, I continue to stand in support of this ordinance.
Thank you. Drew?
Perfect comments, Mr. Tremont. Well done, well said. Also, I don't have anything further to add, but appreciate the efforts and the time put into this and your hard work, our legal department, our staff, everybody that contributed. The list is endless and we can go on, but it's greatly appreciated. This is much needed. And you know, let's not delay this any longer. Let's get her done.
Pleasure meeting you as well, Councilman.
Yes, sir.
And I too want to second that. I want to start with this guy. Mr. Jones has been of inestimable help in helping me in a number of different levels. And I also want to go back to the letter that I wrote and comment about Ashley. Not only Ashley came up to me after the last meeting and thanked me. Now, I need to thank her because I can quantify how much money she's saved this city by brilliant work. And she did it I've been doing First Amendment work for about 35 years now, and she did it as far as mapping goes about as well as I've ever seen it. And so I agree with you, Mr. Councilman.
They're great.
Been a pleasure getting to know you as well.
Thank you, sir.
Scott?
No, I think most all the comments have pretty much been said, and I do think it's important. I do appreciate your comments and clarifying what was probably on all of our minds already was what we've said all along is that those are two totally separate issues and they need to be addressed and handled separately. I would just say to any organization that has any interest in being part of solutions to homelessness, that I think Port Orange and every municipality in Volusia County has made a lot of efforts and strides to provide services, albeit many times they are just simply declined. But we will continue to do that, and if anybody wants to have any conversations on ways regionally that we can do that, we have a council member that sits on a regional board for that very reason, because Port Orange has that true interest, and I think that interest is going nowhere. So we're happy to have those discussions at other meetings in more depth, but tonight this doesn't really have anything to do with that, so I appreciate the clarity on that.
And I wanted to compliment you, Councilman, on several different levels. One, right from the get-go, you've asked the correct questions. You've basically, you've intellectually been interested in everything about this ordinance, and I appreciate every comment that you made from the dais, and it's been a pleasure getting to know you.
With that, I know that we've got one to read in, and I know we've got somebody waiting on Zoom, but I'd like to give preference to hear from the public for those that are here first. Anyone here from the public wish to speak to the ordinance? Jim? Jim? Come on.
I'm Jim Cameron, Senior Vice President, Government Relations, Daytona Regional Chamber. I think we all know the nuts and bolts and everything of what you have in the ordinance, though. I mean, but I wanted to just touch a little bit about the gentleman that prepared this for you, because I know he's worked quite a bit with Matthew, but going back to what we had in Daytona, was that we had a group and wanted to share. We had a young lady there was working on our team, and she had this one concern, and she kept bringing it up, and she just wouldn't let go. She's only like 24 years old or something like that. 26. I stand corrected. He calls me at 6 o'clock in the morning or so and says, Jim, I've been up since 3 a.m. I've been rewriting in here. She was right. She was right. She told me. I mean, and so I wanted to bring that out, though, because that's the type of quality I think that you're going to find in this man here, the ordinance that he's prepared. He does his homework, and it's made night and day difference, though, in Daytona Beach. But at the same time, it was a sad situation, because not long after that, though, that young lady was killed in a car accident, though, several months later. And I called, and that was one of the hardest things, was to tell him. And he said, look, I will take care of this. I mean, I will make sure. And he really helped out her family and such like that. I mean, so I just want to say that's the quality of the gentleman that prepared this ordinance for you tonight. So,
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Jim.
Robert, did I see your hand up? Come on up.
Mayor, council members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive, Port Orange. With regard to the 96%, one of the comments from Mr. Stiltner at the end of the last meeting was the question of whether that the homeless people or the needy people, not homeless, but the panhandlers were able to request permission to solicit on private property. And the response from Mr. Khan was, indeed, there's no restriction on that they can solicit on, the request to solicit on public property or private property. So I guess perhaps you believe that's significant, or some of you may believe it's significant. I don't. But I would like to encourage you even challenge you to adopt a policy that when you invite a religious institution to provide the opening invocation at these council meetings, that you invite only those that have an open and active ministry to the needy. They that permit the needy to solicit donations on their property before, during, and after services and events. The church would have the opportunity to assure themselves that anybody that they permitted to solicit on their property was indeed needy. And so, to me, if not the churches, who? Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Robert.
Robert.
Anyone else here care to speak to the item? There being none, Robin, did we have somebody on Zoom?
Yes, on Zoom.
Okay.
Are they there?
Debbie Parker. I asked her to unmute.
There she goes.
Hello?
There she.
Hello, Debbie. You got 3 minutes. Welcome.
Hello, are you able to hear me?
We're able to hear you great. Go right ahead.
Probably can.
Hello, Debbie. You got 3 minutes. Welcome.
Hi, I'm hoping that you can look at some of the,
We're able to hear you great. Go right ahead.
thank you. I'm hoping
Turn the
that you
volume
can
down.
look at some of the questions that I wrote in the chat, in the Zoom chat.
Did she leave? What happened?
So, she's put comment, or questions in the chat, but I don't think she realizes this is her time to ask those questions out loud. So Debbie, this is for you to ask questions, to give your comments to the council.
Thank you very much for explaining.
You're welcome.
I'm wondering whether or not a new article can be requested or ensured from the News Journal that corrects all the different details that Mr. Khan corrected from the article he read dated the 28th of January.
Want to answer?
Let her finish all of her comments first.
Would you like me to ask other questions?
You've
too?
got 3 minutes and then we'll comment, Debbie. Go ahead and get everything out.
Oh, I see, okay.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, is there a way to communicate to those individuals who are panhandlers and those individuals who are aggressive panhandlers where they are not permitted to panhandle? Will they have access to the maps that the police officers will be using to determine what 150 feet from a traffic light intersection is? Does that seem to be that distance? So they won't accidentally be in the wrong place? And I'm also wondering about whether or not there was a panhandler at any of the previous meetings. I did see the last meeting. I listened to several business owners, local business owners. I think the gentleman, Mr. Cameron, had spoken last week or that meeting as well from the chamber. So I'm wondering, would it be proper for some time for a panhandler or even an aggressive panhandler to speak and ask questions and explain? They probably choose locations that they choose because they're going to get the most traffic and quote unquote do the most business there. They're choosing those places because that's the right place to get their job accomplished. And I know that a lot of people, a lot of the councilmen were talking about the same people every day at certain locations. And I'm sure that is the case. But each and every one of us who go to a job go to perhaps the same location each and every day. Is that not acceptable from a panhandler? And I'm not sure all the details that the ACLU was speaking of, but it, unfortunately, it does seem to me that some of this is not allowing for a homeless person who is a panhandler to express what they need to express. The homeless people here are voiceless, and I wish that it would be possible for those homeless people who are doing the best they can at perhaps the only job they can, being a panhandler, I'd like them to be able to speak to this. And I think that's all my questions.
Thank you, Debbie.
Comment.
Appreciate it. Mr. Khan, do you have any comments on anything that she's asked, or
Sure.
Just
Can-
wanted to make
yeah.
sure that everything is correct on the record?
Sure, I think that absolutely out of courtesy, I did read her Zoom,
Mhm.
and it actually spoke to a whole host of different things. The essence of her Zoom is measurement oriented, and in today's technology, how to measure the different distances is really technologically not difficult. Okay, that's my first point to you. If I might call you Deborah or Ms. Parker, whichever you would like. Second, every member of the public, including any panhandler, has access to the maps which are now a part of this record. They are snapshots. They're fluid, and the only point is going to be that there may be questions that a particular panhandler may have, and he or she will be able to ask them, to ensure that they're living within the ordinance. The map is great for now. If a business closes, it's fluid, but they will have access to the maps. Where the panhandlers choose and why are regulations set, basically the whole distance parameter is not meant to infringe on a panhandler's ability to panhandle. It's meant to protect both panhandlers and those that are captive, especially from aggressive panhandling, but from every sort of panhandling. The fact that a panhandler wants to panhandle in front of an ATM, okay, and for whatever reason, and that is, and or gets angry when refused, doesn't mean that panhandler can't move the requisite distance, 21 feet, 22 feet, 30 feet, and panhandle. And that's good, and that's why those distance parameters are there. Period. It doesn't prohibit panhandlers from making a living. The only thing it prohibits is two things. One, aggressive panhandling citywide, and also panhandling after dark. This is a public meeting. Ms. Parker, and anybody could have spoken here, just as you did, including panhandlers. And I don't know whether the corrections that I have voiced into the record will make it into another article. I hope they will, because I think they'll correct impressions that people like you have about the ordinance itself, what it does and what it doesn't do. That's the reason why I started off candidly by commenting like that. And I actually spoke to the reporter, and she said, very nice lady, a very well written article. It just had some mistakes in it that needed for the record because of people like you to be corrected. And those are my comments, Mr. Mayor.
And I am sure that there will be a lot more written after we're done this evening.
Yes, sir.
We had one more comment that was emailed to us, and it, no? Okay.
Just the one you've already spoken about.
Okay. I was going to say, it looked identical to the
Yeah.
ACLU article, so we have discussed that. With that, back to council, final comments. Jonathan?
No, nothing further.
Chase?
Just to echo the comment I had neglected to mention earlier, I think we have the highest quality of a city attorney that any city could have in Matt Jones, and I've spent a great deal of time with him throughout this entire endeavor. As I've done a 180 shift myself from when I've come in, and a lot of that is due to the amount of research and time spent with our city attorney, Matt Jones. So my hat's off to our city attorney.
You gotta be careful complimenting him too much. His review is coming up, and you might have just cost us some money, sir.
Well, I ain't paying him anymore, but
Drew, final comments?
Nothing further, sir.
Scott?
Yeah, just a quick comment for Mr. Reinhagen. I always appreciate his comments. In regards to the business, the reason I spoke to that, Mr. Reinhagen, is that we have a lot of businesses in the city of Port Orange. They always have had the right to allow someone to come on their property or not come on their property, and they maintain that right. And I think that's an important thing for people to understand, that if there is a business and they so choose, and honestly, we had several business owners speak to all the issues and problems they are having, so we were aware of those. But if there is a business in the city of Port Orange and they so choose to allow that on their property, as long as it doesn't violate the aggressive elements of the ordinance, they have the right to do that. And if they want to do that, I think it's important that our residents, they know that. They need to know that, because a lot of times, you know, the city, the police department specifically, will get those kinds of calls. And I can tell you, there are businesses out there who say, that's okay. They can be on my property. I'm okay with what they're doing. That doesn't change. That has not changed. So I think that that's important. And that was what my comments were about. But
And
I
that does happen.
appreciate you asking for clarity on that.
That does happen. I will have some final comments after the vote to put a bow on it, but with that, call the roll.
Councilmember Foley,
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Ordinance has passed. I just wanted to say for everybody, we're targeting bad behavior. We're targeting making sure the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens are accounted for, the people that come to our city, the people that travel through it. And we're accounting for the panhandlers themselves and making sure that they're safe. There are panhandlers that will tell you they don't want to be next to certain panhandlers that operate in an unsavory fashion. But more than that, the reason why panhandling happens in Port Orange is because we have citizens with big hearts who care, and it's hard for them to say no to the person right in front of them. But I just want them to know that we're not talking about homelessness here with this ordinance. But if you want to help with homelessness, what I encourage you to do, Halifax Urban Ministries, the Jerry Doliner Food Bank the Jewish Federation operates, Hope Place Family Shelter, the First Step Shelter, which the city has a financial interest in, the Salvation Army, the multiple churches in Port Orange that feed the hungry and operate cold weather shelters, Palmetto House, the Felicia Flagler Coalition for the Homeless, Family Renew. I just named a whole bunch of places that we can help with our dollars. You give $1 to one of these organizations, that dollar, the entire dollar, goes to helping homeless and hungry and families that need it most. They don't go to support people's bad habits, and they go to help multiple people, not the one person in front of you that may or may not take that dollar and go in and to the store and buy alcohol or do the things. They might buy food. I'm sure that it will help them in some way, shape, or form, but it also encouraging their bad habits. I would rather see people in Port Orange put their dollars to really good use. The charities that I just mentioned, 100% of those dollars go to helping multiple people. You can help a lot of people by keeping them in mind. That is a separate, much larger problem, and the city will continue to be engaged in operating and working on that problem. But it is much larger than just city government. It takes all of us putting our resources to where they can do the most good. And these organizations are designed to do the most good, to help the most amount of people. That's how we can make a real difference with homelessness. I appreciate everybody here tonight. I appreciate the hard work staff has done. I know that there's going to be a lot going on tomorrow, as the first day of anything. Any change is always going to create quite a stir. The city manager has committed to giving us a first day report to council, and I'm sure that we will all be interested in hearing what there is to and has to be said. With this, and Mr. Khan, my thanks to you.
Pleasure, Mr. Mayor.
I'm going to refrain from thanking Mr. Jones because it might cost me money to do so. Is there something else that, Jamie, you got to be loud about it.
Just one thing before you wrap up the night tonight, Mayor, if I may.
You may.
Thank you. Did want to let council know that they're going to see a slight adjustment from the draft agenda. We have the State of the City planned to preview on the 16th. We have moved that out of the actual meeting, and we'll be previewing that before the meeting on the 16th. So wanted to let you guys know that we will be doing that at 5:45 next Tuesday. And then, of course, that will be available online to view, but we will not be viewing that within the meeting.
Okay. Appreciate that. With that, thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night.